Testament. It's the Old Testament, Proverbs 31, right? About a virtuous woman. So let's read that real quick. An excellent wife, who can find? She's far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She's far more precious than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. She seeks wool and flax and works with willing hands. She is like the ships of the merchant. She brings her food from afar. She rises while it's yet night and provides food for her household and portions for her maidens. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hand she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable and her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hands to the distaff and her hands hold the spindle. She opens her hand to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. She's not afraid of the snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. She makes bed coverings for herself. Her clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in the gates when he sits among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them. She delivers sashes to the merchant. Strength and dignity are her clothing, and she laughs at the time to come. She opens her mouth with wisdom, and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children rise up in the morning and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful and beauty is vain, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands and let her works praise her in the gates. Okay, ladies, anybody think that sounds like Super Mom?
That's Pinterest Mom.
Pinterest Mom, okay. I want to focus not on all those perfect things she did that were listed in there, but I want to talk about verse 30, the second half. A woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. A woman who fears the Lord to be praised. Because while it's definitely a good example to aim for, right? All those things, there's nothing wrong with them. Very praiseworthy. We need to be careful, mothers. This sermon is to you, not just about you. We need to be careful to ensure that as mothers, that you're more like Mary and less like Martha. It's easy for us sometimes, I say us like I'm a mom, but it's easy for you sometimes to look at all that needs to be done and be running around, taking care of things, making sure clothes are washed and food's on the table and all the other things are listed here. And sometimes you lose the opportunity just to be mom. Or even just to be a woman and have a breath. And so I want to encourage you today to be sure to take time to do those things that when you do find yourself with children grown and gone, that you look back and say, I'm glad I did this and I did that. Because we need to be careful. Too often the moms that I counsel as a pastor or folks that talk to me at work, they're overworked and burned out. And sometimes you just need to let go of things and chill out and catch your breath and then go back to it. In fact, have you heard of The Little President? I love what he's got to say about it, and I'm going to try to show it to you here. If it'll play, and those of you online will give you the link.
This one goes out to moms. On behalf of all the kids in the world, here are 2 things every mom needs to know. Number 1, put down your phone, unless your kid is named Phone. Number 2, don't name your kid Phone. That's just not right. That's messed up. And number 3, we love you. It's just sometimes we don't know how to say it. Sometimes it just comes out screaming or crying. But the next time your kid screams, you know what they're really saying is, I love you, Mom. You're beautiful. Thank you for not naming me Phone. 4, stop cleaning. Our house isn't messy. Our house is awesome. It's awesome because we live in it. My mom got stuff to do. Number 5, Mom upside down is wow. didn't mean anything, but I just thought it was really cool. Wow, it should be like this. Wow, 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 wow. Number 6. While I have you here, I want to take a second and talk about meatloaf. Meatloaf's like a loaf of bread, but it's meat. Mom, we love you, but let's cool it on the meatloaf. Number 7. Thank you for cleaning up all the poop. Number 8. Have fun for once. We love to see you have fun. Dance in the grocery store. I found all this stuff. Or sing in the middle of my driveway. Oh, it'll feel great. And then it'll scare your kids so much they'll be quiet. Number 9. Hug more, shout less. Look, I get it. Sometimes we do some things wrong. But growing up is scary. There's school, there's tests, there's telling times with clocks that have hands, there's tying your shoes, and kilograms and kilometers.
Kilograms?
I don't know, it's hard, but that's why I go to school. It's just hard to grow up. Sometimes we just need moms to tell us everything's okay. Number 10, the secret to changing the world, moms. Without moms, none of us would be here. Moms, kids love you, and you. If every mom in the world knew how awesome they were, every problem in the world would be fixed. From kids everywhere, thanks for believing in us, putting up with us, and straight up loving us. Mom, you keep us dancing.
There's a lot of truth in what the little man said, isn't there? Come on, moms. He's a cute kid, isn't he? And it's obvious that he loves his mother. But did you notice the one thing he was clear on? His mom wasn't a perfect mother, was she? Put down your phone, he says. Stop cleaning. Cool it on the meatloaf. Have fun for once. Hug more and shout less. This little boy obviously loves and respects his mother, but even he, at his young age, understands there's no such thing as a perfect mother. Mothers, please be careful, especially tomorrow on Mother's Day, to give yourself the same grace that Christ has offered you. Spend some quality time with the ones you love and take a little time for yourself. The thing I want us to be careful to understand is the amazing impact that mothers have in the lives of everyone around them. Yes, even you mothers, like the little one the boy was talking about. You too have amazing impact. You see, in today's world, we have so many evil influences, both spiritual and peer influences. In fact, that's why they call it peer pressure. And it doesn't change as we get older, does it? Even in our workplace, we can experience peer pressure. You ever notice how hard it is not to laugh when a dirty joke is told at work, when it's really funny? Just because they're simply able to paint it in a funny manner? Ever notice that you start at least thinking, if not saying, curse words because they're used daily in your workplace? Or how about gossiping or otherwise running someone else down because that's just the modus operandi of the people you hang with? You don't mean to join in, but you somehow find yourself sucked in because of the pagan people you're around, because of the sin nature that we're all born with. But in the midst of a pagan world, one of the most powerful forces for God can be the words and examples of a godly woman. You ever seen a child with just a ton of freckles on their face? I read the story about one little boy whose face was just covered with bright freckles. And he was spending the day at the zoo with his grandma. They were standing in line with dozens of other children waiting to get their cheeks painted by this local artist who was decorating them with tiger paws on their cheeks. There's a little girl in front of the boy, and she turned around and smirked and said, "You got so many freckles, there's no place to paint paws on your face." Embarrassed, the little boy dropped his head. Then his grandmother, she knelt down next to him And she said, I love your freckles. When I was a little girl, I always wanted freckles. She traced his cheek with her finger, and she said, you know, freckles are beautiful. The boy looked up in amazement. Really? Of course, said the grandmother. Just name me one thing that's prettier than freckles. The little boy thought for a moment, looked intently into his grandmother's face, and softly whispered, wrinkles. They say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And to that little boy, nothing was as beautiful as his grandmother's wrinkles. You see, a godly woman can have the same influence on people that those of bad influence do. It's just how that little boy with his freckles felt. He was embarrassed and shamed by the words of this world, but he found encouragement and strength in his grandmother's words. I'm here to tell you today that godly women are able to pierce the darkness of this world with the truth of God. Paul talked about that in the life of his protege, Timothy. He spoke of Timothy's mother and grandmother's faith in 2 Timothy 1:5. Why? Because he was reminding him of the heritage he had in them, not only in their testimony, but in what they had taught him, and called him to stand strong in that which those godly women had poured into his life. He called him to have the same depth of faith that they had. You see, Paul knew and understood the influence mothers have in the lives of their children and in the lives of other young mothers. He spoke about this in Titus 2:3-4, where he gives instructions. He says, older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to much wine. They're to teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children. You see, even in this passage, Paul knew the impact godly women have on those around him. He knew their words and actions could make a permanent mark in the lives of those they interact with daily. Your children are grown, ladies. Your job's not done. You just went from babysitter to advisor. You just went from a newly found friend to that wise sage that they come to, and they realize they don't have all the answers they thought they did at 19 and 20. You see, it's because in the words and in the actions of these godly women, the world sees the image of the one woman who believed in them. The woman who bore them and cried for them, who stayed by their bedside when they were sick and nursed them till they well. You can say what you will about men, and they do have an impact on lives, but it's mothers who make the biggest impact on the world. George Washington said, "My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education I received from my mother." Abraham Lincoln, "I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They've clung to me all of my life." Ronald Reagan said, "From my mother I learned the value of prayer, how to have dreams and believe that I could make those dreams come true." Now I'm sure that if we could go back in time with a time machine and talk to each of these men, they didn't always feel that way. Or at least not with the same depth of understanding and gratitude that was expressed in these statements. After all, a mother's just considered old-fashioned to her teenager, just mom to her third grader, and a simple mama to a 2-year-old. I tell you today, there's hardly a thrill in life that can compete with pointing to that wonderful woman and be able to say to all the world, "That's my mother. That's my mom." As Paul reminded Timothy in the passage today, we all owe a great deal to our mothers. Mothers, you are the very reason we're here And today we honor you and call on you to continue to be the godly example in our lives. To continue to pray for us, but also to give yourself some grace and make sure you make time for yourself, to strengthen yourself, to get rest and draw close to God. I would like to close with a poem today for our mothers. Your love I know. I've seen your tears. You've given to me my life. You've walked through hours and days and years of heartache, toil, and strife. To see that I could have the best that you could give to me, you gave up needs and often rest. You viewed eternity. To do His will, my highest call, and by your special care, I stood up and walked and did not fall. You held me up in prayer. Through strands of gray may brush your hair, and miles divide our way, I know that by your quiet prayer, you've helped me day by day. You've shown me how to give, to share, to put my own needs last. You've helped me see and be aware that life is so soon past. Despite your love, I would not dare, for there is not another who spreads her gentle love and care like you, my loving mother. Be sure and spend time with the mothers in your life tomorrow. Tell them of your gratitude before it's too late. Don't be one of those who say, I wish. Tell her today how much you love and appreciate her, and thank her for being Jesus in your life. Amen. Let's turn to number 109.